He wasn't always weak, but somewhere between childhood dreams and teenage reality, he learned to wait. Wait for the right feeling, wait for inspiration, wait for the day everything would finally click. He had goals, real ones. He could see them clearly in his mind, standing on a stage, holding a certificate, hearing his name called with respect. The vision was vivid, the desire was real, but the work? That only happened when he felt like it, and most days he didn't. He'd wake up with fire in his chest, convinced today was the day. He'd sit at his desk, open his books, and feel unstoppable. For an hour, maybe two, he was a different person, focused, capable, alive. Then the feeling would fade. The next morning, the fire was gone. The books stayed closed. He told himself he was tired, that he deserved rest, that motivation would return soon. And sometimes it did, but never for long. His classmates didn't seem to struggle the same way. They weren't brilliant, they weren't passionate. They just did the work, every day, whether they felt like it or not. He didn't understand them. How could they sit there, bored and uninspired, and still keep going? He thought they lacked ambition, that they were settling. He believed his dreams were bigger, and that when the time was right, he'd prove it. But the time never came. Exams arrived like storms, sudden and unforgiving. He'd cram through the night, fueled by panic and regret, promising himself it would be different next time. And for a few days after, it was. The fear motivated him, until it didn't. Then one night, alone in his room, he realized something that made his stomach turn. He wasn't behind because he lacked talent. He was behind because he'd been lying to himself. Motivation wasn't coming to save him. It never had. He'd spent years waiting for a feeling that was never designed to last. That's when he made a decision. Not a loud one, not a dramatic vow written on paper or shared with friends, just a quiet agreement with himself. He would stop waiting. He would show up even when he didn't want to, especially when he didn't want to. The first morning was unremarkable. He woke up, sat at his desk, and opened a book. No music, no inspiration, just him and the page. It felt empty, hollow, like going through the motions of someone else's life. But he stayed. The second morning was worse. His mind screamed at him to stop, to wait for a better day, a better mood. He almost listened, but he remembered the years he'd already lost to that voice, so he stayed. By the third morning, nothing had changed. He still didn't feel motivated. The work still felt meaningless, but something else was happening, quietly, beneath the surface. He was becoming someone who kept promises to himself. No one noticed. There were no congratulations, no sudden improvements. His grades didn't jump, his confidence didn't soar. But every day he laid one brick, and every day the person he used to be became a little more distant. Weeks passed. The boredom didn't go away, but it became familiar, comfortable even. He learned to sit with it, to let it exist without needing to escape. The work itself became neutral. Not exciting, not torturous, just work. Then something unexpected happened. A test came back. He hadn't studied out of fear this time. He'd studied because it was Tuesday, and on Tuesdays he studied. The result was average, but for the first time in years, it wasn't accompanied by shame. He hadn't crammed, he hadn't panicked, he'd just done what he said he would do, and that felt like winning. Months later, the changes were undeniable, not because he'd transformed into someone unrecognizable, but because he'd become consistent. His classmates still outperformed him in some subjects, but the gap was closing, and more importantly, he was no longer afraid of the work. He still had dreams, but now he had something more valuable, a system, a rhythm, a version of himself he could count on. Motivation visited him sometimes. On good days, it made the work easier. On bad days, it was nowhere to be found. But it didn't matter anymore, because discipline had taught him something motivation never could. You don't need to feel ready, you just need to start. The days blurred together. Wake up, show up, do the work, repeat. It wasn't cinematic, it wasn't inspiring, but it was real, and slowly, quietly, it rebuilt him. He stopped comparing himself to the person he wanted to be and started honoring the person he was becoming, someone who didn't wait for permission from his emotions, someone who understood that success wasn't a destination you arrived at in a burst of passion. It was a bridge you built, one boring piece at a time. By the end of the year, he wasn't the top student, he wasn't the most naturally gifted, but he was something better. He was reliable, to himself, and that changed everything. He realized that motivation had always been a guest, exciting, unpredictable, temporary, but discipline was the foundation, the thing that held steady when everything else fell apart. And for the first time in his life, he didn't need to wait for the right moment, because he'd learned to create it every single day, whether he felt like it or not. The bridge between his goals and his success wasn't built by dreaming, it was built by showing up, over and over again, in the quiet, in the dark, when no one was watching. That's where the real transformation happened. Not in the highlight reel, but in the repetition, in the discipline.